Hey, Dan.
Yo.
Man, Dan is looking cool, calm, and collected, just like Jack Smith. And he was testifying in front of some House committee the other week.
That's the kind of professionalism we bring here at Info Hazard, dude.
You calling him unprofessional? Okay. Yeah, I actually read his testimony, his deposition. That was the word I was looking for. I read a lot of the transcript of his deposition, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So, it was, a few hundred pages. This is just like one of several fairly boring documents that I just was up early in the morning reading because I've been super jet lagged lately. But yeah, I'll start with some high level comments. Then I think I have a few fun quotes that I thought I would share with you guys. So basically, this is the Republicans who are the majority. They called him to testify, and they wanted him to testify in private, not in public. And I think basically the goal was to get him to find some gotcha, some nugget, and to leak it, to make it look bad, to give credence to the idea that all the prosecutions of Donald Trump were all politically motivated. And yeah, that seems like basically the goal of this exercise. And I don't think that worked for a few reasons. There was some negotiation, and it was agreed that the whole thing would be released. I guess it's reasonable to think that somehow you'd be able to cut video together to make it take things out of context and leak a gotcha. But this was wall to wall. I mean, if I'm not professional, you know who is? Jack Smith. Anyway, that's the super high level. They talked a lot about toll records, and so these are records of who called who and when. You guys remember, basically, I mean, they ended up subpoenaing toll records from the phone carriers and for several congressmen, and the congressmen and senators, and those they are not happy about it. They're really not happy about it. And anyway, so they asked a lot of questions about that. And we're definitely digging for evidence of impropriety there.
Impropriety? Were they having an affair?
No.
Impropriety on Jack Smith's part.
Yes, phone sex, yes. No, they were looking for impropriety in the way they went about getting the subpoenas. They're looking for prosecutorial misconduct, basically. And they also were interested in how he became special counsel, basically investigating the idea that he really just wanted to be special counsel because he hated Donald Trump and he wanted to hurt his electoral prospects.
Why would anybody hate Donald Trump?
Yeah, exactly.
The world may never know.
Right. They also wanted to talk about whether he had coordinated with state prosecutions. Trump was being prosecuted in Georgia and Colorado and in New York. And it takes a lot of time to fly back and forth between hearings, I guess. Anyway, imagine if this was a coordinated set of politically motivated prosecutions, this would be really, really fucked up. So anyway, of course it wasn't, but anyway, they were asking questions, and they seemed to they're approaching this sort of with the assumption that that's what was happening. So anyway.
They approach things with the idea that the Democrats were coordinated? Boy, I thought Republicans were delusional before, but now I know.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, I didn't make it all the way through, but so that's the stuff that they were talking about in the first 2/3. So anyway, here's some little tidbits that I liked. So here's an example, a part of a question. But the president's statements that he believed the election was rife with fraud, those certainly are statements that are protected by the First Amendment, correct? Jack Smith's response, absolutely not. If they're made to target a lawful government function and they're made with knowing falsity, no, they're not. That was my point about fraud not being protected by the First Amendment.
Got him.
Yeah, actually, the high-level point that I didn't make was that my overall impression was just concise and effective rebuttals of bad argument after bad argument. So it's kind of
impressive. It must have been like porn for you, huh?
Yeah, dude, it's I wish I could use few words and make good points. Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean, if you want like a world-class training in countering bad arguments. Like, spend 4 years going over statements made by the president on in January of 2020. Yeah, you'll get very familiar with some bad arguments.
A lot of the time people say they quote Donald Trump in his speech on January 6th, and that has never even seemed to me during the impeachment trial. They were saying, oh, he said, what did he say? We need to fight like hell, right? It's like, well, of course he means like violent. I looked at them and was like, I don't know. Is he inciting a riot? Like, it wasn't obvious to me. By that. But anyway, I think Jack Smith cuts right to it, that this is not protected speech if it is trying to defraud and if it's targeting a lawful government function.
Let's go to the next quote then.
He's receiving people in his office that are telling him these things, whether it's Rudy Giuliani, whether it be John Eastman, whether it be Jeffrey Clark, whether it be Sidney Powell. And for the most part, he's just receiving this information and, his statements are almost just regurgitating what these people have told him. I mean, isn't that the case? So that's the question for Jack Smith. And his answer is no. And in fact, one of the strengths of our case and why we felt we had such strong proof is all witnesses were not going to be political enemies of the president. They were going to be political allies. A little bit later, there was a pattern in our case where any time any information came in that would mean he could no longer be president, he would reject it. And any theory, no matter how far-fetched, no matter how not based in law, that would indicate that he could, he latched onto that. And we were confident that we had very strong proof of that pattern. He also, I would just add, very consciously did not try to reach out to the sort of people who have the most expertise on these issues. He reached out to people who he thought could back him up.
Yeah.
So it's like saying he didn't know that he was lying because he carefully tried to not learn the truth.
It's very much in line with my understanding of his philosophy. Like, he laid it out in the book The Apprentice. I watched the movie The Apprentice, so this is like an excerpt from the book, but it's deny, and never admit you're wrong, always attack. He's never going to step down willingly from anything. He's always going to latch on to the thinnest premise and push it forward.
Yeah. I just found this. I mean, I've heard, friends of mine who voted for Trump have made this argument basically and talking about how Donald Trump honestly believed that the election had been stolen from him. And Jack Smith, I think, very succinctly discredits that and just talks about how, no, that's not the case. He sought out people who would agree with him. He ignored people who disagreed with him. He intentionally avoided experts.
Unfortunately, I think the sort of people with such a generous view of Donald Trump are not the sort of people who are going to read a multi-100-page government document.
Maybe not.
That's why they can watch Info Hazard. We'll digest it for them.
Exactly.
Tell them the highlights.
All right, next up. Question. And so the special counsel's laser focus on President Trump is simply to prevent him from, either being the party's nominee or being a successful party's nominee, or at the very least keeping him off the campaign trail. How do you respond to that? Answer. All of that is false, and I'll say a few things. The first is the evidence here made clear that President Trump was by a large measure the most culpable and most responsible person in this conspiracy. These crimes were committed for his benefit. They're making this argument that why are you picking on Donald Trump if there's always co-conspirators? Like, yeah, sure, he's the most powerful, but you're always just picking on him.
Right.
No.
But they're all working for him on his behalf. He's coordinating these people, and it's a one-man operation, and he's the one man.
This is a big win for him, dude. He was described as the most responsible person in this conspiracy, dude. Like, how great is that for him? I would never have guessed that Donald Trump would be the most responsible person in any group of people, dude.
Yeah, most responsible for the crime.
Okay.
Most culpable is the first word he used, which I think is the perfect word for that's exactly the answer to it. It's like, he was the mastermind. He was the mastermind, giving him too much credit. He was the most culpable, and the whole thing was about him.
He's like the opposite of a mastermind, dude. He's like trying to avoid learning facts and stuff, right?
Someone told you that he honestly believed that. I guess it takes some of the honesty out of it if you're actively trying not to learn things that contradict your view, but it does maintain your personal belief, right? If you're only taking in information that confirms your personal belief, but you don't come by it honestly. Does that make sense?
Sure. Well, let's see. Okay. I think that there were a couple things that Jack Smith pointed out was that, like, one, he accepted everything that meant he could stay president, and he rejected everything that meant he couldn't stay president. And so it's not that he never encountered information that disagreed with him, right? So he did avoid information. He tried to avoid information that disagreed with him, but he couldn't always avoid it. So yeah, the fact that he was avoiding information, that doesn't disprove that maybe he actually believed it. There's just at least two behaviors of his that they're demonstrating that make it vanishingly unlikely that he actually believed it. Like, he was presented with compelling evidence that it was wrong, and he rejected that, and then he avoided talking to experts. Okay, next up. Did you develop evidence that President Trump, was responsible for the violence at the Capitol on January 6th? Right. So our view of the evidence was that he caused it and that he exploited it and that it was foreseeable to him.
The violence.
Yeah, exactly.
The Capitol.
The point is, when asked, this relates to like what to how I looked at the facts on January 6th, or how CNN, whatever they say, like, oh, see, he says fight like hell. And it's like, that's not at all actually compelling. That doesn't convince me that he caused the riot or that he incited a riot. So back here, he decomposes this responsible for the violence question into these components of it. He says that he caused it, he exploited it, and it was foreseeable to him. A kind of precise and persuasive answer to that question. I'm assuming that he has the evidence for each of those things, and that's the whole point in court is that that's what they would prove.
I would hope that he has more evidence than what we saw on the news, but I think that his statement is defensible just with public information.
Yeah. Okay, next one. To the extent members of Congress and senators are up in arms that this happened, they're talking about the phone record subpoena, and they're seeking accountability, who should be held accountable for answering these questions? Well, I think who should be accountable for this is Donald Trump. These records are people. In the case of the senators, Donald Trump directed his co-conspirators to call these people to further delay the proceedings. He chose to do that. If Donald Trump had chosen to call a number of Democratic senators, we would have gotten toll records for Democratic senators.
Also, all of these fucking Congress people probably vote in favor of warrantless surveillance on all American citizens. So for them to get all upset that their phone records were taken with a warrant is pretty hypocritical in my view.
Aren't they getting like a huge cash payout for having their phone records searched?
Yeah, that too. They voted themselves a huge payout in the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was for this. Yeah.
It was for this.
I remember information from previous episodes.
All right, and then my last one that I got that I thought was insightful. The question didn't really provide useful context, as just you mentioned somewhere along the way. Our view is that the case we would have presented at trial would have been Donald Trump preying on the party allegiance of people in his party.
Huh.
And a lot of this has to do with, because a lot of the people who were his witnesses were Republicans, right? For example, Raffensperger, is that the guy's name, in Georgia, the type of people, the Republicans who stood up, Mike Pence, right? The people who were inclined to agree with him, but who saw the obvious criminality and hypocrisy of what he was doing. So I think it's an interesting framing of this. For the Republicans in that category, I don't know how many of them still exist. I'm very grateful to Mike Pence the first time. I think that if there are still Republicans in the party who are defending Donald Trump, they should realize, I think, exactly what Jack Smith says here, that he is preying on them. They'll be eaten eventually. I hope they figure it out quickly.
My assumption is that the people who are still in that camp enjoy it, and it's their weird little kink. They like to role play being preyed upon. And, ooh, crush me in your jaws, daddy, they say.
It was just very interesting. Yeah, maybe we'll see. It was interesting to see, like a Jim Jordan, Jim Jordan was the chairman of this committee. He was asking some of these questions to him. And it's infuriating to watch Jim Jordan. I think that he's a lawyer, and so he believes in being zealous in whatever you're fighting for. And it's kind of interesting to say this to Jim Jordan's face, in a way. That even the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Lauren Boeberts have been literally preyed upon, chewed up and spat out by this guy. And I think, does Jim Jordan really think he's special? I don't know.
Everyone thinks they're special, dude.
Jim Jordan's mom thinks he's special.
We talked about MTG a little bit. Like Bobart too, she's been increasingly sort of like going against party lines. Both of them were so like the vanguard of the MAGA revolution, and it's interesting to see how like all revolutions, they are the children who are being eaten. They've been turned against by the MAGA faithful.
Did you see that Trump used his first presidential veto of his term to punish Lauren Boebert?
Yeah,
I did not. What was it?
He vetoed a
used
unanimously
first veto.
passed water project for her district.
Yeah.
Like, it passed both houses unanimously, and he vetoed it, dude. Just out of spite. They'll probably just fucking revote the same thing unanimously and override the veto. So it's just a pointless temper tantrum, saying he didn't want these people, his own voters, to have clean water, dude.
You can override a veto with a 2/3 majority, and it passed unanimously, so you can just run it back.
Well, but
it
passed unanimously before they knew that Donald Trump didn't like it.
Exactly, dude. They might all change their minds, just
Right.
like how last week all the Republicans were anti-war, and this week they're all pro-war, dude. Because now Donald Trump went to war.
Just like when Donald Trump said, like, yeah, of course we would want to release the Epstein files, then everyone went ahead and almost nearly unanimously voted for it, though when he was against it, they had to fight to even put it up to a vote.
Now that you mention it, I thought about it more, and I don't think the people of Colorado deserve clean water, actually. Fuck them kids.
They should have radioactive water, dude. That's what he wants.
Yeah. That's nuts.
All right.
Well, I hope it doesn't go down like that. And I hope that this had gone a different way, this Jack Smith testimony. Like, this is all interesting information to hear. Now, it sounds like they had a pretty good case, and that, Donald Trump should have been prosecuted for his crimes January 6th and leading up to it.
But instead, he's out starting wars all up and down the Americas. So thanks a lot, American voters.
Thanks a lot, Merrick Garland.
Yeah, we shall see. And if you shall see, leave us a comment and like and subscribe to Info Hazard, because we love you and we miss you and we wish you would call, and we're waiting by the phone.
Please send
Bye.
pizza money.
Peace and pizza money.